Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Community IT Voices interview. My name is Carolyn Woodard, and today I'm interviewing Ben. So Ben, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what your title is at Community IT?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ben Nuest, and I'm the Centralized Services Administrator.
And what are your responsibilities?
I do mostly scripting and automation related work. So I write a lot of PowerShell specifically. It does things like app installations for our clients, does some integrations and like internal data pipelines between some of the different tool sets that we use. And then I have a handful of other just sort of odd centralized services support duties. Like I help with some onboardings and other things sort of that nature.
So you're on the centralized services team. What does that mean? You told me it's an internal team that helps our clients kind of behind the scenes.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So the help desk does everyday individual support tickets for client end users. The centralized services team does things like we manage things like deployments to like all of the computers at a client, for example. So whereas somebody on the help desk is helping an individual with an individual problem, typically, we're typically doing things that impact larger numbers of computers, like 10 or more or something like that. So yeah, like I said, lots of deployments, setting of policies, things of that nature.
So what do you do in a day-to-day? Like, it sounds like you do a lot of behind the scenes things. So do you do coding, or what do you work on usually?
So typically it is kind of coding related tasks. I call it scripting because it's PowerShell, but depending on who you ask, there's kind of a really gray, blurry line between coding and scripting. I've done a little bit of sort of both sides of that line, I guess. My role is pretty internal facing as far as like who I spend time interacting with. I do talk to clients here and there, but it's pretty seldom, like maybe once or twice a month, and it's usually only to POCs. I have done client work, just not with community IT. My last place, I had a more of a help desk role. Sometimes we get tickets from clients asking them to automate stuff for us. Like we have clients who want us to automate settings in like Office 365 or something, where it goes through every user and sets something on their account. Or we'll have clients who, the most common one that we get is we have a client that wants to install some kind of like third-party application, like Zoom or TeamViewer or something along those lines. And so we have to write and maintain scripts to install those, because every time they release a new version, we might have to change the script a little bit. Not typically, but sometimes those things change. And then, like I said a little bit ago, I also write integrations for some of our internal platforms. So right now I'm working on something that will pull some billing and usage data from one of our platforms and then put it into our PSA platform so that we can do reporting and stuff on that without having to log into that other platform.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about some things that are really helpful for our clients that you can do centrally and deploy, as you said, to all of their staff members. So if they know that they want all staff to be able to access Zoom, each person doesn't have to do it. You can do it. And then when they log on, they can get into Zoom. So did you have a tech background when you started with community IT? It sounds like you have a very technical job.
I did, yes. My last position, I started in sort of a help desk role and started picking up PowerShell and scripting stuff just kind of wherever I could. It was something that I thought for a long time, I thought for a really long time that I would never have an interest in coding or anything similar. And as I started kind of working with it, I discovered that I really like it. quite a bit actually. And so I started picking stuff up in my last role more frequently. And that was never really my main job duty, I guess. But when they brought me on here, that's kind of my main, it's the bread and butter of what I do. So
How did you find out about community IT and what made you decide to apply?
I actually have a friend who had been watching Idealist at the time, which is like the the Indeed for nonprofits and socially conscious organizations. And I had kind of been keeping an eye on Idealist, but I hadn't looked recently at the time that she pointed it out to me. And I looked at the role and I looked into the company, and the role looked cool. But it was really the company that sold me on wanting to apply. Like a company that deals only in nonprofits and is employee owned, those are just huge to me. So I I jumped on it pretty quick. I was really excited when I applied for this role, and even more when I got it.
So why are nonprofits important to you? Like, what in your background made you feel like you're a good fit for that, or made it important to you?
One of my previous jobs, not my next most recent, but before that, I worked for a credit union, which I don't know if you're familiar. It's basically like the nonprofit version of a bank, and it's more complicated than that. Credit unions are member owned, and so they're owned by the people that hold their money there. But that has always just felt a lot better to me than I feel like I'm not working to fill somebody else's pockets, and I also feel like the people that we support are doing good and important work. Every time we get new client descriptions in, I love reading about what they do. They do some really cool stuff. We brought a client on a while back, and I realized while I was working on their onboarding that I had been following them on Instagram for like several years. It's like, oh, I know this client. Really cool. We've got some really cool clients.
So it sounds like you came from a tech background and had an aptitude for technology, and then we're keeping an eye on Idealist as a place to find job openings in this
Mhm.
sort of area. Is that advice you would give to someone else who is coming up in technology and is looking for a fulfilling job where they're not just working for a corporation?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I have a hard time with this particular question because I feel like there was a great deal of luck involved. Like I don't have a degree. The formal schooling that I have had is actually in music. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't even really watching Idealist all that closely at the time that my friend pointed this job out. So I got very, very lucky that she happened to be watching, and it was sort of the right job at the right time. And I had a good amount of experience with PowerShell at that time. Like if the job had been posted a year earlier, it probably wouldn't have worked out or something, either because I wouldn't have seen it or I wouldn't have had the requisite experience, and just it was kind of I don't know, the stars aligned or whatever.
I think a lot of people at Community IT have said that it was kind of serendipity, that they changed careers or they had a background in something else. And then, like you said, the right job at the right time came along and there was a good fit. So when you are like at a party or introduced to someone and they want to know what you do and who you work for, like what do you tell them is Community IT? What do we do?
Usually surface level answer, I'll tell people that I work in IT or tech support. But if they look for anything more than that, then I tell them I work for a employee owned company out of DC that contracts only with nonprofits. We work with some really great people. And then I say that I specifically work in automation.
It just sounds like you found a good spot for yourself. And I know that Community IT is really, really happy to have you doing this role that clearly you are well suited to. So thank you so much, Ben, for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for talking with me. This has been fun.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for having me.